Hello and welcome to the Pre-Chiro Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're making a professional chiropractor connection out in Iowa with Dr. Beth Zogg. Dr. Zogg, can you kind of just introduce yourself and also just spend some time reflecting on that moment in life, where you were at, what you were doing when you were attracted to become a chiropractor? Like, what was it that pulled you in this direction?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me on the show. So, I am a chiropractor in Iowa, and I actually am one of those people that grew up in a chiropractic family. So, my grandfather was a chiropractor and kind of a famous chiropractor. And so, I grew up with chiropractic my entire life around my grandparents and all of their chiropractic friends. But I never really thought about becoming a chiropractor. And so my first love was dance, and I studied dance in junior high, high school, and then I actually got my undergrad degree in dance, studying primarily ballet and modern dance. And so I had plans of moving to New York and auditioning for, maybe a small modern company. But I was having a lot of problems, a lot of injuries, a lot of tendonitis. And so if you know much about the dance world, you just have to keep going no matter what. And so I was taking a lot of aspirin every single day. I was messing up my stomach. And so I was sort of stressed out about that idea of, I was reaching this goal of trying to become a professional dancer, but my body was breaking down really fast. So, about that time, my grandparents invited my mom and I down to Atlanta, Georgia for a birthday party that a bunch of chiropractors were having for my grandpa. And this was at what was called the DE meeting, a Dynamic Essentials meeting. And so we got there, and all these chiropractors were like so passionate about chiropractic. They were hugging each other, loving each other. And I was like, wow, these people are so much like my dance friends. Like they really love what they're doing, and they're so close with one another. And so that was the first time that I thought, if I don't go into dance, maybe I should become a chiropractor. So it was arranged. Went down to Life. I had a tour of the college. And of course, I knew the president, Dr. Sid Williams, already. And my parents and grandparents said, well, if you want to go to chiropractic college, you could either go to Davenport at Palmer, which was really close to my hometown, or you could go to Atlanta. And so being a young girl, really for no other reason than just, wanting more adventure, I chose to go to college in Marietta, Georgia.
Can you kind of just introduce who your grandfather was and what was his legacy and what was so special about the work that he contributed to chiropractic?
Sure. Sure. So my grandfather's name was Dr. Clay Thompson, and he entered into chiropractic college in the 1940s at a time when the chiropractic equipment was kind of outdated. And so my grandfather had a background in engineering and kind of worked in a machine shop as a kid. So he had a really mechanical mind. So he came up with this idea of a drop headpiece, which basically just means when you lay on the table and the chiropractor gives the adjustment, the headpiece drops a little bit. So the thinking behind this was that with the speed of the drop, you could give a little bit more gentle adjustment. And so he went on from developing just this first drop headpiece to a full spine drop table, and then developed a whole analysis that goes along with that. So for you prospective students, the Thompson technique is taught in many of the colleges. And so my grandpa was really just a technique developer, but he also really just loved chiropractic because he actually was dying of diabetes when he was in his 20s. And it was chiropractic adjustments that saved his life. So our family really understands that chiropractic is much, much more than just treating back pain or neck pain. If my grandpa had never seen a chiropractor, my mom would have never been born and I wouldn't even be here.
And can you maybe just describe what it was like for you to come from that background and that upbringing and then enter into chiropractic school? What were some surprises? Also, being a dancer in your background, what were some surprises you encountered? What were some challenges you had to overcome? Maybe some specific path that you gravitated towards taking as a chiropractic student based on your background and what you were bringing with you?
Sure. Yeah. Well, as a dance major, as you might imagine, I did not have to take chemistry, organic and biochem and physics and all of that stuff. So I did have to take all those prereqs, which was kind of a challenge for me, to be honest, because my brain was like so much into creativity that it was hard to like switch just, into like chiropractic college. So that was a challenge in the beginning for sure. Um, at that time at Life, we had an actual dance team because we had sporting events. And so I got to still keep dancing, even though it was a little bit different style. I still got to keep dancing all through chiropractic college, which was really a blessing. So I still stayed connected to that creative side. Another big surprise for me was just the fact that, prior to chiropractic college, none of my friends really cared about who my grandpa was. It was just like, oh, that's Beth's grandparents, whatever. And then I got to Life and like everyone was so like, oh, Clay Thompson's your grandpa and stuff. And so it was a little bit overwhelming from that standpoint. But I just made the greatest friends. I mean, Life at that time was just amazing. I mean, there was so much what we used to call in the old days like spiz for chiropractic. And so it was a great experience for me being in school. I was a little bit rebellious against some of the diagnosis stuff because having grown up in chiropractic and being around chiropractors my entire life, I'm like, well, why do we have to learn, this diagnosis and that diagnosis? And I had a little bit of a bad attitude, which now looking back on it, I think, it was a great opportunity to learn. Knowledge is always good. And so if I could go back now, I would have a good attitude toward all of my classes, but I was a little bit rebellious about it, I guess.
Would you say that chiropractors are rebellious in nature in a general sense? And I'm also curious, what specifically did you develop as a skill set when you were a student or when you got out of school? Like when you look back on it, what were you really good at? What did you really dedicate and put a lot of deliberate effort and practice into?
Oh, sure. Wow. Well, so before I went to chiropractic school, I had never received a lumbar roll or a rotary break. Like I'd always been adjusted my whole life on a drop table. So it was like all new to me, really, because in the lower quarters, we started off with motion palpation and then we learned Gonstead listing, Gonstead adjusting. We did have toggle recoil, which that sort of came more natural. So I did always gravitate toward, things that were utilized on a drop table just because that's what I was used to. And that's how I liked getting adjusted. When I was in school, one of my grandpa's really good friends became my mentor, Dr. Glenn Stillwagon, which for you future students, there was a technique called the Pierce-Stillwagon technique, and that was developed by Vern Pierce and Glenn Stillwagon. And so Dr. Stillwagon then had gone on to do a lot of work with instrumentation. So basically, he developed this infrared instrument that would kind of like make a weather map on a screen of a person's back. And then we would use that to see how much irritation there was in the nerve system. And it was a really great way to see a before and after the adjustment. And so I really got into thermography big time in school. I really enjoyed Toggle. I enjoyed the Thompson classes. And then at Life, we had a really wonderful teacher for SOT, Dr. Jerry Hockman. And so I really enjoyed all the techniques that sort of matched nicely with Thompson technique. So Thompson technique is really based a lot on Logan Basic technique, which is another technique I like very much. And so Logan Basic technique, SOT, Thompson, these were all the techniques that I really gravitated toward while I was a student, and really truthfully what I use in my practice still every day.
Can you do your best to just give us a little basic introduction into what Logan Basic is and Thompson technique and SOT, and then segue into like your practice, how you practice, the type of experience that you've designed for the people that come into your chiropractic practice?
Sure. Wow. Okay. So, Logan Basic Technique was a technique that was invented by a Dr. Logan in the St. Louis area. And so, this technique looks at the foundation of the spine, which is the sacrum. So, part of the pelvis, that triangle shaped bone called the sacrum. And so, there's a ligament that goes from the coccyx to the tail, the sit bone. Okay, and this is called the sacrotuberous ligament. And so what Dr. Logan did is he would just take what we call a contact or a light pressure on that ligament, and he found that that would actually clear the entire spine of subluxation. And there was a lot of research done with this technique. And so the thing that's a little different about the Logan analysis is that in some of the like Gonstead or diversified techniques, they look at the biomechanics of the sacrum as when it subluxates, it goes posterior. But in Logan technique, he believed that the sacrum, because of all the ligamentous attachment in the back, was more likely to go anterior and drop down low or inferior on one side or the other, creating kind of an unleveling of the foundation of the spine. And so that's what the basis of the Logan technique was, which forgive me, anybody who's a Logan expert, that's probably not a very good description. But so from there, then the Thompson technique and SOT also use that same idea of the sacral base, like the top of the sacrum dropping low and anterior. And so that's where we get this, we call AI sacrum or anterior inferior sacrum. And then, all of the compensation that happens because of that. And you imagine like your house, if the foundation is off, everything on top of it has, is not as perfect or not ideal, and it's going to, have negative consequences. So that's really the sort of the foundation of like all those techniques that look at the sacrum in that way. For my practice, I've been in practice a long time. I'm older, as you can see. So I have I've created a very low key, easygoing practice because that's where I'm at in my life. So I do not file any insurance. I'm all cash. And that's, again, just because I like that. I just like that vibe of like being more relaxed and not having to deal with insurance companies, trying to de-stress my life. I am a sole practitioner, and I do a lot of things right now in chiropractic besides practice. So I am only in the office 3 days a week. And I'm kind of a one-man show. So I do a lot with like online scheduling, things like that, to make it really convenient for my patients. I am like a loving person. I love my patients. My patients are everything to me. So it's like very, very close connection with them. And, most of my patients are just regular maintenance patients. I do take new patients, but, I've built up a nice maintenance base. So I just see the same people. Some of them come once a week. Some of them come every other week. Some of them can get by with once a month. But, that my practice is just kind of like my dream practice. It's like a smooth running machine, and just full of giving and loving and serving.
You had mentioned that you do a lot for the chiropractic profession. Can you maybe touch on the different ways that you've remained engaged and involved in the profession, how you've decided that you wanted to focus your efforts on supporting and developing and progressing our profession?
Yeah. Well, so I actually took 4 years off of practice completely when my kids were little. And then until they graduated high school, I really was not super involved in politics or anything like that, or even teaching, because I didn't want to miss that time with them. So my kids now are 24 and 22. And since they've been out of high school, I've really done a lot more with teaching. So I do travel around and teach classes in the Thompson technique to students and practicing doctors for their continuing education. I will on occasion do a class on the thermography, which is not as popular, but I'm one of the few nerdy people that like teaching that. I am the state representative for Iowa for the International Chiropractic Association. So I am involved with that organization, which is the organization that was started by BJ Palmer. And then the Thompson technique, we actually have a nonprofit organization that is devoted to promoting and teaching the Thompson technique. So I do a lot of work with that. We have certified instructors, and our teachers teach Thompson technique all over the world. And so we're really building that. I'm actually this semester I started taking a master's in nonprofit management. So I'm really trying to hone in on becoming, the best at figuring out how to run a nonprofit. And so once I get the Thompson technique, nonprofit really rolling, I hope that I can use those skills to help other chiropractic organizations.
Can you talk about what it means to be a representative in the ICA and what the ICA represents, and maybe just why students or docs should maybe consider getting involved, or what it means to be involved, what it means to be a representative for that organization, and what the role of that organization is?
Yeah, so I am more along the lines of what we would say is a straight chiropractor. In other words, I believe the most important thing a chiropractor can do is to locate and adjust vertebral subluxation. And so we have a couple organizations that really are true to that mission, and that one of those is the ICA, which is the one I'm the rep for, and the other one is the IFCO, which I'm a member of also. So the ICA is doing a lot of great work politically in trying to fight for chiropractic. We are putting up a bill that will allow chiropractors to be paid for, say, x-rays, exams and things like that we currently are not paid for, like through Medicare. And they're also working on a very important part of that bill, which is an opt-out part, which would mean that a chiropractor like myself who doesn't want to do any insurance, then I would be able to take care of Medicare patients without having to file anything with Medicare. So for you new students, currently the way it works is that if someone is 65 or older and on Medicare and they have an injury that is a Medicare covered service, then you have to file Medicare. So someone like me who doesn't do that, if I have a regular maintenance patient I see often and they have an injury, I can't see them for that injury. I have to refer them to another chiropractor that bills Medicare. So it's really a bad deal. And so ICA is fighting for the people that want to have pure cash practice. And I think that is really important for the future of the profession. We need those organizations that want to keep chiropractic separate and distinct, keep our language pure. We don't want to be sort of just slowly engulfed into the medical profession, because we really are different. Chiropractic is a science, and we have a different way of looking at life and health than the medical profession. So that's why I'm really excited to be involved with the ICA.
Yeah, can you maybe give us an introduction on chiropractic, us being a high school or a college prospective student, maybe a career changer, and how do you kind of explain chiropractic, and maybe also give a basic explanation of Thompson technique, since you've mentioned it multiple times as well, please?
Okay. Well, chiropractic is different from other healthcare professions in that we look at healing as coming from the inside out. So most of traditional medicine will, have a patient come in with a symptom, and then the medical doctor will try to prescribe something, whether it's a therapy or medicine, to treat that symptom. But the chiropractor is looking at what is the cause of the problem. And so for us, we are primarily concerned with the nervous system, and we're concerned with how does the brain communicate with the rest of the body, and then how does the body communicate back to the brain. And so we are looking for these areas of the spine, which are called vertebral subluxation, where the body has been unable to adapt to stress. And so this vertebral subluxation is this misalignment of a vertebra with the one above it, below it, or both, which causes what we call an impingement, and it interferes with that communication between the brain and the body, or that transmission of mental impulses. And so this is very, very serious, because it's almost like if I was like a general and I had an army overseas and my communication system broke down, my army is over there. They're overseas, they're ready to fight, but they don't know what to do because they haven't been given any orders, you know? And so the nervous system is the most important system because it controls everything. And chiropractors understand that every single person is born with this inborn innate intelligence. So in other words, like I tell my patients, even, you did not have to tell your stomach to digest your breakfast this morning. And, you know, as we're sitting here, we're not telling our heart to beat. We're not telling our, you know, lungs to take in air. So there's this intelligence that's running the body all the time, every second. And that intelligence has to adapt to every single change that happens, whether it's, you know, a change in the room temperature, a change in, you know, something that you breathe in, a change in forces, like if you trip or fall. And so it's the body's inability to adapt to those kind of stresses that create the subluxation. The chiropractor then is the only healthcare provider that has been trained in how to find the subluxation and then adjust it. And when the chiropractor actually does the adjustment, all they're really doing is just putting a force into the patient's body at the right place. And then that intelligence that runs the body will take that force and fix the problem, because that intelligence already knows where everything is supposed to be. So in a sense, you know, the chiropractor is really just putting the brain and the body back together again. And so it's really a beautiful profession. I mean, it's very unique because no one else does this but the chiropractor. The Thompson technique is, there's many different ways to analyze for subluxation. So the Thompson technique is one of the techniques that looks at the leg length, because when there's a vertebral subluxation, one leg is going to kind of draw or pull short. And this is just because of that irritation in the nerve system, an imbalance in the nervous system. And we know that the human body really loves symmetry. You know, if you think about it, we have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes. The body loves symmetry. So the goal with the Thompson technique is to look at the leg length difference, and we'll have the patient do a few things like turn their head to the right or to the left, or we may bend the legs, you know, from straight to flexed. And the body actually shows the chiropractor where to adjust in which order based on this leg length deficiency. So it's really, really awesome because it gives the doctor like a before and after. The leg length is short, we make the adjustment. When the legs even out, then we know that the nervous system is free of subluxation. And so this is just one of the techniques, the Thompson technique. It's done on that specialized table that I mentioned earlier that has the drop pieces. But, you know, there are many great techniques. There's techniques that use x-ray to find the subluxation. There's techniques that, you know, will feel the spine. We call palpation, trying to find, you know, those areas that don't seem like they're moving just right. So there's many, many different ways to locate the subluxation. But this is just one of the techniques that looks at the leg length as a way to find the subluxation. And then, of course, I do think the use of that thermography is also a nice component to show, like, in fact, you actually have done the right thing at the right time in the right place, because the thermography scan would improve after the adjustment. So as you students, prospective students go into chiropractic college, I would say go to as many chiropractic technique classes as you can. And colleges always have technique clubs. So you can go to a club and learn about, you know, activator, learn about Thompson, learn about Gonstead, learn as much as you can, and then figure out which technique sort of fits your body type, your personality. And then you can maybe just pick 3 of them that you really like and focus on learning those really well. so that no matter what comes in your office, no matter what kind of patient, you're going to be ready to handle any problem.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And if we could just pivot this conversation now, a lot of what I'm hoping to bring forward is this pre-chiropractic program that will become available to high school students, college students, career changers, wellness professionals, people that are not positive they want to become chiropractors, but are maybe starting off unsure, want to learn a little more, and then they get hooked and interested and want to go further and deeper and maybe get more out of their college experience by focusing their studies on pre-chiropractic. I'm wondering, from your vantage point, someone who's been in the profession a really long time and is involved in the profession, what the field of pre-chiropractic studies can bring to the profession that potentially the profession is missing, potentially the profession has never invested any resources or energy into. I'm just, as an open-ended question, what comes to mind for you as far as like really dedicating ourselves as a profession to developing pre-chiropractic?
Yeah. I think, and this was that lesson I learned when I was in school, having a little bit of a bad attitude. I was wrong, because now I see how all of those pre-chiropractic classes are teaching students about the human body, about anatomy, about physiology. And, when I was talking about this innate inborn intelligence, the more that you study chemistry and anatomy and physiology, the more you can see how amazing the human body is and how incredible it is that this intelligence can take one cell from the mother and one cell from the father, and when those come together, it makes life. And so I think that the value in these pre-chiropractic classes is like when students can see the beauty of the human life, then they get chiropractic. They get it when they get into their adjusting classes, and they see then, that they adjust a baby that's been constipated, and then right away the baby goes to the bathroom after the adjustment. Because they have all that basis in all of their sciences, they understand what's happening, and they can appreciate, even to a deeper level, the beauty of that innate inborn intelligence.
Thank you for that. And you've obviously been involved on teams of chiropractors that work together towards a common goal on a common mission. Do you have any observations to maybe share about the culture of chiropractic amongst chiropractors and kind of like what it's like to know other chiropractors, to work with other chiropractors, even maybe just sharing what your observations have been of teaching other chiropractors? How is our culture unique, or just maybe characterize the culture of chiropractic, if you can, specifically maybe the tribes that you personally are involved with?
Yeah. Well, I grew up around chiropractors, so they've always seemed like family to me. And then even from that birthday party I went to, when I was like, wow, these chiropractors are really like loving on each other and hugging each other. Chiropractic is a family, because when you lay your hands on a patient, and you are, putting a force into a patient's body that beautiful inborn intelligence is going to take and heal, it's so big. It's so important what we do. And so the camaraderie that we have with one another is very deep. It's a mission. It's a higher purpose than ourselves. And so it really brings the chiropractic community close. You could go to a conference and be around chiropractors that maybe you never even met before. And after just a couple hours of being around them, it's like you feel that love for one another, because it's that whole thing, like, you love what I love. And so we're so separate and distinct that we have such a passion and love for what we do, because we understand the world needs us, that it is like a gigantic family. And yeah, I mean, I love my favorite people are chiropractors. I mean, honestly, I get to travel quite a bit to different colleges, different places, and teach. And I've met wonderful chiropractors everywhere that I've been. And we have a passion for what we do. And so for you potential students, if you want to get into a career that is incredibly meaningful, where you can love and serve humanity with a brotherhood and sisterhood, then chiropractic will fulfill all of that for you.
Thank you so much for sharing with the prospective students today. Is there any really like creative projects that you're working on behind the scenes, or just in general? Like, what are you inspired by today, present moment? And like, maybe what's your vision for the next 5, 10, 15 years now? I'm just curious. And then as a little side tangent, you said both of your daughters are already out of high school. So were they ever really exposed to chiropractic within the context of being high school students or college students? And like, I don't really know, but I don't think that chiropractic has much of a presence within colleges and high schools. So I'm just curious on that as a side tangent.
Yeah, so let me start with that question first. So yeah, my children were not exposed to chiropractic. And you know, it's sad because we are just 30 minutes away from Palmer where it all started. So I think that is sad. I don't think they had any exposure in college either. So I think that is something that I love that you're doing this, because we do need to get the word out to the college students about chiropractic. Um, what I'm doing right now that is kind of neat is I just finished my first year of the philosophy diplomate program. So I did the LCP program. There are two programs. There's ACP and then there's LCP. So I did the LCP, and then years 2 and 3 we will all join together in the same classes. And so the chiropractic philosophy does explain life and health and understanding innate intelligence. And so I would recommend any student to, when you get into chiropractic college, seek out the philosophy, seek out this diplomate program. You can start it as a student. So I will be finishing years 2 and 3 for that, which I cannot wait. So this last year, you know, I've really been digging deeper into the philosophy of chiropractic, and I feel like it has enhanced my teaching of technique, because, you know, you have to understand your why. Why are you doing it? And so that's really what I've been doing recently. That's my goal in the next, 3 years or so, is to get that diplomate in philosophy. I hope to continue teaching seminars for Thompson technique, but also I at some point will step more behind the scenes and let the younger doctors take that forward and be more of just a supportive role with the Thompson Foundation. But I hope to, you students that maybe are going to start chiropractic college, I still got a few good years in me yet, so I hope that I will visit your school. And if I do, please come see me if I'm teaching a class nearby.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to share with the students today. Can you maybe just share with us the resources or websites or podcasts or Instagram channels that you are sharing information on, but also that you're a fan of, that you maybe recommend students go check out themselves?
Gosh, okay. Well, the Thompson Technique Foundation, our website is thompsontechnique.org. So that's a good resource for Thompson Technique. We also have on Facebook a really, really fun Facebook page with a lot of chiropractic history, Thompson Technique and otherwise. And that is under J. Clay Thompson Technique Foundation on Facebook. Man, I am into a lot of different groups. So I like the group, the Sage of Chiropractic Wisdom, I think it's called. I like the group, the Association for the History of Chiropractic. That is a really awesome group. Obviously, ICA, IFCO. If you're a woman, a girl or a woman chiropractor, there's a women WDC, which is a group just specifically for women. I love Dr. Jay Komarick. He's an animal chiropractor. So I really think that he's an awesome person to check out. And then also I have to recommend DE, Dynamic Essential. I mean, that's where I got my start in chiropractic, and they have a beautiful support system there, great speakers. So, man, if you're going into chiropractic, get involved with as many groups as possible.